Conversations. Here where we profile young women that are human rights defenders and doing well in that stride. Today on the show we have Yollander Millin, who is a human rights defender and has done so much in terms of the human rights discourse in Zimbabwe. Yollander, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Unika. It's nice to be here. Hello, everyone.
So maybe we can just start us off with introducing yourself, what you do, and what sort of human rights defending that you're into.
Okay, thank you so much. I would say I'm an all-rounder. I'm an activist, a debt activist at that, and also I'm into women and children's issues. And in that regard, I've been around, like advocating for shelter, advocating for food, advocating for access to water, and this was in internally displaced communities. And also you'd find that around the time when we had COVID, I was part of a group that is called We Are One Movement that went around most areas in Zimbabwe trying to just advocate for those people that were marginalized to get food, to get access to all the things that are basic at that time. And also, maybe if I should just add, I'm also a student of the Accountability Lab, and in that space, my project was Accountability Awareness Matters. So accountability for me is something which is really, really grand, and I believe that it's something that should be looked into, and that's why I'm proud to be advocating for people in accountability spaces, to demand that accountability from debt, that's your governance, and going down, spiraling down to the marginalized communities, that's representing people who they have a voice, but they probably do not have access to those who are making decisions for them. So just being able to bridge that gap, that's where I come in.
So what would you define as accountability?
Okay, accountability is simply being able to take responsibility. Like we're saying, you need to be accountable. If people put you in a space and you need to be accountable to them, to go back and say, it's not always the positive, sometimes it will be negatives, but just go back and report back to say, no, you said this, but this is how it has happened. So that is taking responsibility. If it was you who has done something, say maybe you have taken funds and you have used them elsewhere, be responsible enough to come back and say, I did this with the money. That is accountability, being trustworthy, being responsible. I would say, to me, that is accountability.
So what would you say have been your challenges, particularly as a human rights activist in the Zimbabwean context that is a little bit politically and economically unstable?
I would say, chief amongst all, because they are so vast, but chief of them is the fact that some statutes in the constitution do not align. They contradict each other. For example, you find that children do not have access to education, yet it's a constitutional right. But then the constitution then goes on to say that children should have access to education provided that the funds are there. And come on, look at Zimbabwe. Our funds are never there. Like we've been struggling. Right now we're in economic crisis. So the funds are not there. So you find that money that is allocated to education is minimal. Same thing for health, same thing for shelter. So you find that women and children suffer the most because at the end of the day, they are the ones who occupy the larger demography if we're looking at the population. So that's why, I find it problematic. Those some of the things like policy and the policies that we have are not pro-people, they're not gender sensitive, and that poses so many problems because anyone in any space can, take advantage of those fractures that are within the constitution.
It's really funny that you talk of Zimbabwe not having enough funds. And when I look at some of your work through my research, I found that you're also part of advocating for natural resource governance that is pro-people. And Zimbabwe is richly endowed with almost all the minerals the world over. We've recently discovered that we have oil, we have diamonds, we've got gold, we've got lithium deposits, we've got almost each and every mineral that is there in Zimbabwe. But when we then look at the finances or the GDP, we see that Zimbabwe is regarded as a poor nation. Where's the disruption here?
Okay, I think we have a poor management structure. Like right now, we are mortgaging our natural resources, from the minerals that we've talked about, even to people. Zimbabwe has got people, and Zimbabweans are bright. They've got ideas, but we are mortgaging them. If you look at the stats, how many people, Zimbabweans, are in the UK right now? And look at the type of job that they're doing. But they went through the education system. They've got doctorates, they've got masters, but they're doing menial jobs. So you find that the problem that we have as Zimbabwe, in my own understanding, is that we do not know how to manage our resources well. Instead of us taking loans that are resource-based, we could just use our resources to make them work for us, and then have a debt strategy that will allow us to pay off the debts that we have. So that's basically it for me.
Yollander, so you keep on talking about debt. And to someone watching out there, of course, we know what debt is, but in the national discourse of Zimbabwe, how does debt then get to affect the ordinary lives of women, of children, the women and children that you advocate for in your work as a human rights defender?
Okay, debt, like Zimbabwe owes, it's not just Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is not unique. It's not a unique case. Everyone has debt. South Africa has debt. Zambia, everyone.
The United States?
The United States itself has debt. But I think it also comes back to how we manage our debt. If we are going to borrow, let us borrow for projects that will regenerate the money and bring it back. Because right now we find that if we take money, even in the household situation, if you take money as a loan from the bank and you use it for luxurious things, maybe you go, you buy pizza, you buy burgers, you buy cars, luxury. At the end of the day, the bank will start demanding for its money and you don't have it. Who suffers the most? Your wife and the children, right? That is the same case even in Zimbabwe. You'll find that when Zimbabwe owes, right now we've got a debt of 17.6 million US billion, sorry, and we can't pay it back. How do we then pay it back? We now enter into the taxes, increased taxes. And who is being taxed? It's us, the women. Why am I saying the women? Because, like I said initially, women make up the larger demography of the population. So we find that we are taxed, and yet also we are in the informal sector, meaning that we are overworked, we are underpaid, and overtaxed as women. So at the end of the day, we find that we don't have as much, but that little that we have, you find that someone is continuously milking a dead cow. So that becomes then the problem of debt. But debt in itself, let me just say this, debt in itself is not a bad thing, because it helps us to get out of tricky situations. If you're in a fix, it's okay to get a debt, but make sure that you have a debt repayment strategy. You know when you're going to pay, and be faithful to that strategy.
I think really that then answers my next question, which was to say, what policies do we need in place, particularly with regards to debt, which is really the work, the scope of your work as a debt activist and women and rights gender activist?
Yes, I think when we look at policies, I think we should really push for the debt policy. I know, and I commend the government, they are making strides towards that, but I think we really need to keep on pushing on it. CSOs have been pushing, I know ZimCode, I know TIZ, I know Action Aid, and also women's groups like Wild, they've also been trying to push to say, you know what, women are here, women are better people that can manage, even in the house, women, they manage finances better. So let them be in those spaces where we're making decisions about the monies we are getting and the monies that we are using. So policies and, looking at the debt policy, looking at gender sensitive policies, looking at even the budget system itself, let it be gender sensitive, let it be pro people. Because we want to say, if we are going forward as a nation, let's not be okay up there when everyone else down here is suffering. Yeah.
So looking at the Zimbabwean context, which is really quite dangerous for human rights activists, what would you say are some of the measures that you'd want or aspire for government to take in order to protect people like you that are continuously working and advocating for the rights and the people of those maybe that cannot speak for themselves at that particular point?
But then it all comes back to say, who is the government? Because we are the government, we are the people. So if we can get to a space where we sit down and we negotiate, I don't think there will then be any need for violence, there will be any need for protection. But in any case, we have statutes like that, we get into scenarios like that where it is needed. I think we should find each other. That's the solution. We can have opposition parties, we can have activists, but at the end of the day, let us be able to sit down and listen to what the concerns are. If we can then find common ground, then we work together to find ways to move forward. There won't be any need for any friction.
That is really very interesting. So what are your parting shots to the people that are watching that would maybe want to know more about debt, or that are just women and children out there?
Okay, like I said, debt is a universal issue, and we really need to take it seriously from individual level, going up, spiraling towards even the parliament itself. We need to capacitate particularly women to enter into those spaces and to make the decisions that favor them, because as the larger group, we can't have people making decisions for us when we're here. It doesn't necessarily make sense. We are able, women are able, we can, and we should be awarded spaces where those decisions are made. I want to convey that if we are going to have debts being acquired, let there be women's voices there in those discussions. Let women speak up. And also maybe to encourage the women themselves to say, rise. No one is going to do it for us if we do not do it for ourselves. So we need to stand up, to gather ourselves, support each other, because we are the people. It's us. And let's not be okay until everyone else is okay.
I think those are really very beautiful words by Yollander Millin that she's really living us by. Let's not be okay until everybody else is okay. This has been another episode of Accountability Conversation, and I've been your host, Unika Intobing Yago Kombora.
Shungu, tango yongo, meze kuti miromo yakavara, ndangitange